Good morning everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Wednesday, October 24th, 2018. Happy hump day everyone. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. This is looking like it is going to bounce at the moment. It shows everything that you'd want it to be showing if you're a bull. And right now, let's start number one with the rejection at the previous low. Rejecting the prior low yesterday was very solid. It also occurred at the 2700 level or thereabouts. In the trading room, we mentioned that we need to be able to get back above 2700, number one, and number two, close above the current day's midpoint and beyond if possible. And that would throw off a nice rejection tail, a failed new low. And then what we mentioned would be that today the entry would be a retest back at the midpoint of yesterday's range. That allows for a minimal adverse excursion and all potential favorable excursion, as this potential bounce likely goes back toward the previous high. So that's the likely outcome right here, is for bulls to continue to defend that midpoint for a shot at pushing this thing back toward recent highs, call it 2830. Right now the midpoint again of the previous session is 2724s, and price bounced off of the low today is 2719 quarters. So anywhere in that zone we could come back and retest those lows again, but anywhere shy of breaking that area suggests that we could be looking at a bounce ahead. This type of behavior can sometimes last 1, 2, or 3 days before you see a bounce, but in the current market it would not surprise me if price started to push beyond recent highs and really starts to go already. I mean, it happened last time, but it did take a couple of days of defense. So again, this is a zone where bulls want to keep bid between 2720 and 2725 for a shot at returning prices to 2830 to 2850 over the next 1 to 5 days, or perhaps even a couple of weeks. So we'll see how that develops here. Again, as long as price continues to hold and close above the 2700s, the expectation is we could see some development like this for a little while. Failure to hold that level would open up the next level down, which would be about 2525. So I mean, it's quite a ways down to the next zone if you want to test the next recent low or anywhere into that area. That would be what you would target if you failed to hold 27. So that's a big level. It's a big level. And in the near term, while we could break it down the road, in the near term, it appears we could be in a range-bound pattern here, and this is the first rejection, which could lead us to the top. So keep an eye on the ES. And if we look at the NQ, you can copy and paste that analysis. For the most part, right here, no rejection on the low. So the difference is that this was a higher low, but look at the midpoint again. Midpoint at around 70.50 being defended here already. A nice bounce off that zone. A perfect midpoint retest entry. And now you have 2-day, 3-day highs all in this zone. So if price can really start to push up through these highs, again, we could be looking at a move back towards 7,400 to take out the recent high. And then at that point, we may see this thing swing right back down, as this thing perhaps could play out in a range-bound pattern here for the near term. So again, perfect midpoint retest. We could still retest that area today, tomorrow, the next day or two, but as long as it remains bid and price continues to close above that level, we have more upside ahead. If we take a look at the YM, again, very similar behavior right at the key level. Remember, if you've been following my analysis, PivotBoss here, since the beginning of the year, this level right here, the 24,886, I mean, that's a level that we've had since February. That's been our key level based off of the early impulse move. And so far you can see how that level has been very, very important already. So when we sold off up here, we mentioned that this could be a target and this could be a target because of those key levels that we've had since February. So they've been very, very beneficial, very powerful in our analysis. It comes from the impulse sell-off of the early year move, and that is the exact midpoint of that range. And that's why you're seeing action at that level. So again, very clear action off of these levels a nice midpoint retest here. Again, if price can continue to hold that 25K level, we have a shot to bounce back above 25.8 to as high as 26K. So again, that could be a pretty solid bounce. Now take any profit that you can get at that point, because there could be a rejection that leads us right back down. So again, expecting some weakness here just like the last time if we do make it to those highs. Let's take a look at crude oil. Now crude oil is showing a very tightly coiled range after yesterday's major sell-off. That was a huge day. One of the biggest days that we've seen in many months, probably since this day back here. Huge day down. You can see that each of the days progressively got bigger and bigger and bigger until we finally got below 66s even. I mentioned that our target on this move was going to be 66 to 67, somewhere in that zone, and it basically got there and is now showing a little strength. At the moment, price is breaking above the 66.75 level. We're about 11 ticks above it, and there's a very narrow box that is formed below that level. So if price can continue to hold above that zone, there is a shot at bouncing back towards 68s, between 68, call it 68.30 and 68.50, somewhere in that zone. There could be a very nice bounce back to that area. Whether that happens all in one day or not remains to be seen. We do have crude oil inventories today, but anytime you have this type of overextended move, there tends to be a rubber band type of trade back. And so again, this would be the spot to see that type of action. And even if we do bounce back, it could be chopped back and forth for a little while before this thing finds its sea legs and can bounce back up toward recent highs. So right now, maybe some near-term strength if price can hold above 66.75. Lastly, looking at ZB. Let's take a look at ZB. It's a 30-year right here, downtrending market. This thing has been very bearish, very bearish. At one point it had been very bullish, and that's been a long time ago now, it seems. And now this recent release of energy was to the downside. Price bounces, attempts to make a higher low, but fails right here. On the day that everything else looks like it's making a lower low failure, this one's making a higher high failure. Midpoint retest in a downtrending market. This appears poised for another move down. Again, I haven't really been a fan of this one on the upside since we topped out a long while back. Ever since we broke market structure, we had that major rejection and started to do this. We've been bearish, and then here, bearish. And then once we got inside here, it was sideways. And when you break market structure, bearish, and it's still going. Nothing has stopped this thing yet in terms of pure chart analysis, and it just doesn't appear like it's ready to stop going down just yet. But we are at the point where if it were to stop going down, this is a good level to work off of. It's basically the 139s. The 139.14 is the previous month's low. Breaks to that level. It remains below that level all month, even on yesterday's rally. But if it can now push above that level, there could be a stop run of everyone who got short here. That could lead to a near-term bounce back towards, say, 145.29. So there is a shot now. And I think this has now given us enough energy to where if you are bullish, this would be where things get very interesting, above 39.14. Other than breaking above that level then, however, I think this thing suggests more downside. Midpoint retest here. I think this clearly has at least another leg down, especially if 137.10s are violated. I think that opens up the next target down zone below, which would be about 134.14s, and that would be a 100% target. So I think that would be the next likely target if price cannot get back above the 139.14s. All right, that is it for now. Let's see how this plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room.